Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that very warm welcome and real pleasure to be here with everyone. Feel free to ask me to slow down if I go too fast, because I have been in Zoom meetings where translation has happened before and ended up going far too quickly a few times. So happy to be told if that's the case.
Okay, okay.
And just to understand the questions for the end, and do I have a look myself, or is someone going to be monitoring those?
I will do that. Don't worry. Don't
Okay,
worry.
thank you, Maria. Thank you. So, a great privilege to be with everyone, especially in this very special month of January. And yeah, lovely topic, the ups and downs of the journey. So I know everybody's experience of becoming a Brahma Kumari, and the journey, the path is very unique. And personally, I've always found it fascinating to hear people's stories, regardless of how long a soul has been on this path. It's always very, very interesting. So I was reflecting today for today on my own journey, and thinking about the balance of what would be inspiring about the journey, and also at this time we're in, what would be practically helpful to share as well, as we're moving into, or we're already in, a very, very interesting time as we move quickly towards the close of the cycle. And I had a very big contrast in terms of before and after on this journey. As Maria said, I took the course 20 years ago at the age of I remember 30, 32, and so I'd had 32 years before living a non-BK life, and I very much came from a scientific background. I did a degree in genetics, and I had no real interest in religion or spirituality at all. In fact, I think I became an atheist from about the age of 9. I remember quite clearly. My parents were. I was born as a Christian, technically. Um, my parents practiced Christianity in the sense that they went to church twice a year, roughly, Easter and Christmas. But I went to Sunday school because they wanted to give me a chance to, I guess, have my own experience. I don't know if you have the concept of Sunday school, but it's like sort of a regular Sunday class for children. So we would have our playtime together, and then we would sit in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the adult sermon in the main part of the church. And I always felt very uncomfortable with that, probably some past life experiences and some scars, I don't know. But I remember very clearly protesting quite strongly one day at the age of about 9, saying I really didn't want to go anymore, and that was it. And I think from then on, I was very much moving into a path of devout atheism, if you want to call it that, very much going down the scientific route. So that was my formative years, and I always believed in the potential of human beings, and the potential for goodness, but not in a, I wouldn't have called it at all spiritual. I just thought that was a normal, correct attitude to have towards other people. And I didn't see the need for religion or spirituality as I understood it in that. So I guess these days it maybe would be classed as being a humanist. So yes, I started my journey as an adult very much in that mode, and was very intent on becoming successful. My father was a self-made businessman, and as we all get influenced by the people around us, so that was my main aim, that to create some sense of security in life. A common aim, I guess, but I was very ambitious, but also very, very shy. So I had to use a lot of force of determination to move forward in life. And in my 20s, I had a good measure of success working in sales, which was extremely painful. Someone who was shy, but I was more determined than I was frightened. So I used the sheer determination to educate myself in that field and move forward. And I like working with people, so it made sense. So I combined that with my scientific knowledge and worked in that industry. But I also started my own business, which I had for 9 years, from my early 20s to my early 30s. So, and I also was in that at that time in a long-term relationship, also 9 years. So everything on the outside looked to be going quite well. I had my own house at the age of 23, 24. And then as part of the business world, the business I was in, I was training people, and I became very interested in the whole area of personal development, which was exploding at that time as well in the 90s. And I was just reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of audio cassettes, as they were at the time, pre-CD. And some of those books started to talk about spirituality and meditation. And there was one particular book that's quite famous, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And that talked about 4 cornerstones for success: physical well-being, emotional, mental, and spiritual, which was a little bit uncomfortable for me. But I was reading the book and feeling that there was a lot of wisdom in the book as a whole. So I started to become more open-minded to spirituality and in the sense of exploring my own potential, exploring the potential of others, and really considering what it means to be a human being. And I also started to look at the more sort of mystical or Eastern philosophies, also things like Taoism, which didn't involve God, which I was very much against at that time, that concept. So gradually, Baba was drawing me in, but I didn't know. Very, very gently massaging the soul, very, very slowly bringing me towards like a magnet. But I was a very rusty needle, so it took a bit of time. And I started to practice meditation, which I decided would be safest to learn from a book, because I didn't want to go to any weird groups, any strange groups. Little did I know. So I learned from a book, and I was meditating for about an hour a day, and it felt like a good tool that I had for maybe staying a bit more peaceful. It wasn't life-changing, but it was useful. So I thought, okay, this is as good as it gets. I have a balance of, looking after the physical, healthy eating, um, reading books on emotional balance and spiritual and emotional intelligence. All of that stuff was coming out at the time. And then I had meditation and some of the philosophies around that on the spiritual side. And I thought, okay, this is life, and there's benefits in having a balance of all these things. And then one week, a very strange thing happened. There's also another backstory, but I'm thinking about time and what to share. There had been quite a big disagreement in my family, and I hadn't spoken to my parents for 7 years. So it was a pretty big thing, as you can imagine. And I didn't know at the time, but my mother had also started to meditate, and she'd actually done a Raj Yoga course. And also at that time, I was meditating, and it was a time where we met up to try and move forward and restart communications. And meditation came up in discussion, and she mentioned the Raj Yoga course, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting, but I already do my own meditation." And then within 2 weeks, there were two other people who I knew. None of these three people, my mum and these two other people, knew each other, but they all mentioned the Brahma Kumari's Raj Yoga meditation course. I'd never heard of either, but I thought this is really strange. In 2 weeks, that for three different people to mention this. So I went online and I thought, okay, well, it looks like a very strange organization. Maybe it's some sort of cult, but let me see what they offer. And they had this thing called World Meditation Hour, and I thought, I'll go to that because nobody will try and talk to me in that, and I can just quietly work out what is going on for myself. So I went, and this was in North England, in a city called Sheffield, and I went along, and they opened the door, and there were all these strange pictures on the wall and people dressed in white, and I thought, oh, where have I come? And so anyway, I sat down for the 1 hour meditation. I did just the meditation that I knew how to do, closed eye meditation. I think it was some version of transcendental I was practicing at the time. But I never experienced the level of peace that was in that room before. I'd never experienced anything like it. And that is what got my attention. And I think this is the interesting thing, that nobody said anything to me, but it was the experience of peace. And I just never experienced anything like that before. And basically, since that day, I've been coming every day since. I'm now based in London, but I signed up for the course with my partner at the time, who was also, it was quite fortuitous in a way, because we were both very interested at the same time. And she was also working with me in the business that we had by then. And so we both signed up for the positive thinking course, and then we also had signed up for the Raj Yoga meditation course. And in between the two, Daddy Janki had come to Sheffield to do a talk, and that was quite and just an unbelievable experience. I'd never met anybody like Daddy before. It was, I just thinking back, it was such a strange experience that a human being could be like that. Just a feeling of the wisdom and just the ability that she had to be able to look at you, and you felt like she knew you far better than you knew yourself. So I'd never experienced making eye contact with a human being and feeling that sense of love, acceptance, and wisdom. So that really got my attention. And so I'm always thinking that when we're serving others, and Baba talks a lot now about being the example, particularly about contentment and happiness, and that through our dana, that's how others really get served. That's real service, is our own behavior, our own dana. And I remember Daddy saying that somebody once asked her, what is the most important subject of the four? Is it knowledge? Is it yoga? Is it dana? Is it service? And she said, dana. Because if your behavior, if your way of being, your example is good, then it means that your studying is good. It means that your yoga is good. And it means that service will be automatic. So that always stuck in my mind. But she was that soul was a huge catalyst for me. So that was it really. Myself and my partner stayed in Gyan in a pure relationship then for a year, which was a fascinating experience. I really learned about how purity changes relationships, again from having the before and after experience of feeling before that we were in a good relationship, but then seeing there was a new level of respect towards each other when we started interacting as souls rather than male and female partners. So that was a very powerful experience. She decided after a year quite suddenly that she wanted to follow a different path, but that was fine. I came down to London at that point. It was a very difficult time. Huge transitions because we also closed the business. We were working together, and so there was a huge amount of change happening when I actually, that first year in knowledge. So I when I look back now, I think, wow, it's been a very intense journey. Even thinking up to that point, the first year being sort of a honeymoon period with Baba, but also a period of huge change, moving from a very secular background to following Raj Yoga. I distinctly remember talking about ups and downs of the journey. I remember doing the course and listening to the course and thinking, my intellect was going, this can't be true. And my heart was going, this is true. And I remember particularly the lesson on the cycle. And you can imagine being a scientist and particularly studying evolution and genetics, hearing that the cycle is 5,000 years long. That my mind went, oh, what? And my heart was saying, yeah, this is true. And I remember going home after that lesson and just sort of slumping in a chair. It was the lessons were happening in the morning. Sort of slumping in a chair, very bemused, very confused, and then just sort of bursting into tears and crying for, I think it was pretty much 2 hours straight, and then just sleeping and then waking up like 10 hours later, quite late at night. And then the next day when I got up, I thought, I don't know how this is true, but it's definitely true. And so quite incredible, literally being in two minds and experiencing the old mind putting up a big fight, and all the logic and analysis and experience that I've had before in my life, all the studying I'd done, and then suddenly bang, not being able to explain why this Raj Yoga course is the truth, but just knowing it is. So that was quite an experience. So yeah, that's sort of my journey into Gyan, into the path of knowledge. And then I was just thinking about the early days and how when I came to London and Daddy was around a lot then, and how my perspective of Gyan was to really follow Srimat as accurately as possible, and how try and follow the letter of the Murli very thoroughly and very almost, you know, in the style of a perfectionist. And at the time, I remember other BKs that had been around longer going through various challenges and thinking and making decisions about which direction in life they wanted to go in that were maybe slightly different. And I remember looking back being very, very rigid and inflexible and quite judgmental without realizing at the time that it wasn't the right thing to do. I didn't say anything, but just internally I was thinking, oh, how can you be child of Babas and then make decisions that are like this? And then, of course, I started to get challenges a few years later, and I've been through lots of ups and downs. And I think one of the lessons that I've learned is that, and I consider it a great fortune, and I'm very humbled by it now, is that if I never let go of Baba's hand, that's the main thing. You know, that whatever challenges come, and I think we're in a time now where everything is coming up in souls. Certainly, conversations that I'm having with the family. I go to Global House in London, so it's quite a big family, and we also have a lot of visitors from all around the world that come through London, and I'm sure some of you have been through. I know you have. So it's interesting in terms of speaking with different members of the family, and this may be your experience as well, but everything now is coming up as we come to the sort of closing stages of the cycle, in terms of everything has to come out of the soul to be cleansed, to be purified. And I feel quite blessed that I sort of been on the path 20 years and had the experience of quite a few ups and downs, and getting a balance between following Srimat, but also and not being careless, but also having a lot of compassion for the self. I think it's a very, very high path to follow. The Brahmin path, the path, the life of a Brahma Kumar, the life of a Brahma Kumari. It's a very, very high path to follow. Or as Baba puts it, it's not like going to your auntie's home. You know, one Murli he'll say it's very easy, but he'll also say then it's very difficult. That the concept is easy. Mam man above, ma judge above, remember me, remember your aim and objective. But the realities of actually doing that with all the experiences we've had for the second half of the cycle, all the sanskars, all the memories, impressions that we have. So the reality is that there's a lot of stuff coming up now. He also compares following the path to homeopathy sometimes. That, you know, when you use the medicine of a homeopath, that everything erupts when you're treating the disease or the symptoms. It gets worse before it gets better. So I think it's very important, I've found, to have an understanding that to see the Murli in context, because in the early days I used to also read the Murli very much, the Murli of the day, as an absolute thing. And you know, sometimes Baba is very, very strong in the Murlis. It may be with the Sakar Murlis that something particular was happening at the time that required that sort of guidance from him. and other times he's just talking about Srimat in general and just putting it across in very strong terms, because he has to be completely truthful with us about really being clear about the choices we make and the consequences of those choices, and to tell us everything as it is, but then also to take it in the context of all the Merlis that are very loving and very compassionate. And so I think I've learned very much to, and also see the humor in the Merlis and the lightness. So sometimes when I look at a particular Merli or quote a particular line to myself, I have to think about all the other Merlis that have been spoken as well. And I think this is the real key in sort of getting a balance of everything in terms of the love that's there and the love that Baba is giving us, and anything that comes across as strict and harsh, that I have to consider it, but I have to take it within the context of how it was said in a very loving way, and that Baba just wants the best for me, and is always trying to nurture me and protect me and uplift me and help me make decisions that are going to be in my own best interests. So I think if I'm going through a tough time, and I don't know if it's true, but I think particularly for Western souls and also the translation of the Merli, but sometimes combination of that, and when we are going through a tough time, we can be particularly hard on ourselves, and then we hear the Merli from that point of view. You know, I hear it from that point of view that I'm already feeling maybe bad about myself, and so everything gets amplified. So I think then the ups and downs of the journey can get very much amplified. So I think one thing is just really checking in on that, and getting a context of the Merlis that's not just the Merli in front of me, but remembering and going back to notes on all the very loving things that Baba has said. So keeping a balance of all the blessings and all the beautiful things that Baba has said, and maybe keeping a journal of those things, as well as the things that I want to work on, is very important. So just a few things there about the journey from my experience and what I've seen for others. And I wanted to talk a little bit before we go into questions about what I've found useful in terms of practice of study and yoga, and also particularly I think in the last year, the atmosphere of the world I've found is changing now very rapidly. And one thing that I find interesting is that it is very tough, very, very tough for a lot of souls at the moment in terms of life experience. But I also need to keep really an eye on my own effort and my own internal state, and not get into comparison, because, and the reason I say that is that there's definitely a very heavy atmosphere in the world at the moment with everything that is going on, and we definitely get affected by that, because I think old souls are very, very sensitive to that energy, and so building up our own power with Baba is very important. But I guess what I'm trying to say is also to be very compassionate with the self, because although souls out there don't have the knowledge that we have, we also have a lot to deal with on an emotional level, as well as all the other stuff, physical and whatever else is happening, because we have that deep memory of coming into the physical world at a very pure time in the golden age. And so the contrast for us now is so, it's such an alien world for us. This is not our world, as Baba says. We're here to serve, but it's very, very, very different from the world that is natural for us. So that creates a lot of burden on the soul. It can create a lot of burden in the soul. And also seeing the sorrow of and struggles of souls around the world at the moment. And on top of that, we also have to battle Maya. So as well as all of that other stuff, then Maya is also chasing us very hard now, because she's at the point where she's just about to lose the game. And so she is really coming after to see how many she can take with her. And this character is, it's good to see the humor in it. The reality is it's quite a battle, quite a boxing match, as Baba says. But Maya isn't challenging the other souls of the world, because she already has them in her camp. So they're not a threat to her. So she's not battling all those souls. So I'm saying all this so that, yes, obviously, towards the very end, that Brahmin souls will experience a huge upliftment. All the efforts that you're making, that I'm making now, that we're making, is creating a foundation. And sometimes it feels like we're making very slow progress. But at some point, there'll be a very big shift where the Brahmin souls are moving rapidly towards the angelic stage. And because of that creation, that effort of creation, that foundation we laid for ourselves, that will also trigger the world to go into the extreme depths of destruction. And there'll be a huge difference in the experience of Brahmin souls and non-Brahmin souls at that time. And obviously our job is to uplift as many souls as possible. But at the moment, it's very, very challenging also for Brahmin souls. And I feel a message of hope for that is that I think we're very used to moving forward in linear time. So I've been through these phases of thinking, oh no, I don't want the end of the cycle to come, because I need another 30 or 40 or maybe 100 years to sort out all my sanskars and to be able to defeat Maya. And, I still need so much time. And at other times things have got so hard, I've just thought, oh, let's just get it finished. But now I'm more at a time where thinking that it's really good if I give Baba a date for my completion, even though I think it takes a lot of courage. It's something I did at the start of the year. I'm not going to say what date I gave. I think that's very personal between you and Baba, but it's not a long time away. And I'm thinking the reason it took a lot of courage is because I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get to become Karmati in that time. But Baba says that if you take a step of courage, he will take at least 1,000 steps towards you. And so I thought, okay, Baba, let's do this. And I think this understanding is very important to have. That I don't know if you've ever seen a building site before, or maybe some of you are engineers and architects, but when you see a building site, it looks like the foundation takes ages to do. It takes absolutely ages. You just see there seems to be nothing happening. There's just this building site, and then you drive past or you walk past one day, and suddenly there's this massive building there, and you think, oh, where did that come from? And it feels like that with the efforts we're making, that self-respect is an issue for old souls, but that we're actually doing and making a lot more progress than we realize. And we're hearing the Murli every day, and Baba is oftentimes, he's always giving us the image of perfection to aim at. So also we can think, oh gosh, I've got so far to go. The reality is, if I've got really pure intentions to make progress and I'm doing my best, and then Baba will help a lot. And then actually I will be able to make progress very, very quickly in the coming times. And so I think is also having that perspective that things won't happen. You know, at the moment, the drama has been moving a bit like a louse, as Baba says, but that, you know, as we approach the end of time, things will speed up very much, and we will also move forward very quickly. And that's very necessary because we have to help in our angelic stage. We have to help a lot of souls that are going to need that help at that time. And of course, we have to be powerful at that time. So I think it's having that faith and trust that Baba will get the job done, and also having that trust and sort of positive view of the self, and having the right intentions to move forward, doing my best, and knowing that that will be good enough. So having that balance, I think, is really, really important. So the other thing I was mentioning was yoga practice and methods at the moment. And one of the things that I worked on at the start of my Brahmin life and of really focusing on now is the relationships with myself and with Baba. Both in meditation, but also in using journaling, which some people love journaling, some people not so sure about it. So I'll explain why I use it and what effect it has. So the biggest message Baba gives us is just remember me all the time. And so to be able to do that, I really need to have a good understanding of and a good connection with myself, because it's only when I'm connected with myself in a soul conscious way that I can really tune into Baba's energy. So I think it's really, really important, and Daddy used to talk a lot about honesty, is that I'm having conversations with Baba that are very open and honest. And Baba says that sometimes he says he knows everything in our heart, sometimes he says he doesn't. Again, the context of how he plays with this concept in the Murli. But he does know everything that's going on for us, but it's up to us to actually tell him. He's not going to force it out of us. And I think one of the things I've noticed is that through journaling, I have this practice, and I do it, a journal at least 5 times a week. In fact, for 2 years, when I went through a really rough time a few years ago, 2 years I was doing it every day. And I've kept the practice up. And the way I do it is that I write to Baba whatever's going on for me that day. But as well as doing that is to write a letter back from Baba to myself. And this is one of the most powerful exercises that I've done. And it came from, well, the story is quite long, I won't go into it, but it came from a very difficult time where I was asking Baba how to connect with him more honestly and openly. And funnily enough, as often is the case, it was a conversation with a BK in the family that happened pretty soon after I asked Baba that question, with a very open, honest heart, that this idea of journaling and writing from Baba to me came to me. And how we do it, and you may have done this in workshops, but as I had before, but doing it every day, or at least a few times a week, is a different thing altogether. Very powerful. So it's to write to Baba, just telling him very honestly what is going on for you, just a normal sort of journaling style, however that works for you, but just free writing whatever's in your heart. But then the key thing is then having some meditation for a few minutes after that, and then writing a letter back as though Baba is writing back to you. And you always do this with your non-writing hand. So whichever hand you don't usually write with, use that hand to write back from Baba to you. And the theory behind it is that because you're having to focus so much on writing with your non-writing hand, the intellect is focused so much on that that it allows the channel to be much clearer for Baba to get through to you. And you can use journaling in this way to build the relationship between Baba and yourself. And this is how I've done it. And using the body, the writing, using the body to do this, it really helps, because also, you know, the body has absorbed so much energy from the soul in terms of trauma and all the energy that I need to clear. And so it's good to involve the body in the communication as well. And just as if you were forming a relationship with a beloved in a human way, that, you know, you would communicate with that soul in different ways. Sometimes it would be conversation, sometimes it would be writing. And you know, sometimes in meditation we find it's difficult to concentrate, and the mind is, as we know, can be a wild horse. I've found by combining talking to Baba in meditation and also the same day, if you're doing it daily, is journaling, but it actually helps to build the depth of that relationship. So I'm connecting with Baba in yoga, but I'm also connecting through journaling. And anything that I can do to create a channel for honest expression of connecting to the self, what's going on for me. And you can also use journaling to try and solve the issue for yourself in terms of write how you feel, and then in the evening, and then usually you'll get something in the next day's Murli that is related to that will pop out at you. And then you a bit slower, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slow.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Thank you for telling me. No problem. So if I'm journaling in the evening, expressing what is challenging for me at the moment, asking Baba for help, quite often I'll get something come up, some sort of answer come up in the Murli. And then also I can journal to Baba about that. I can give Baba appreciation for his guidance, but also, as I said, writing a letter back from Baba to myself. And if I'm using it in that way, that I'm incorporating not just journaling and complaining all the time, although it's fine to complain to Baba, he can deal with it. If I can't complain to Baba, then who can I complain to? So the sweet complaints of the children, it's okay. But also balancing that with appreciation for what Baba is giving me, gratitude, if you like. And then when I write back for Baba with that sort of honest effort, then I actually find, and we just did this on a silent retreat at GRC, the Global Retreat Center this weekend, that I was helping to run. And we use this method. A lot of people had not tried this method of journaling before, and found the feedback was very, very touching. People were in tears. They were very surprised about the messages they were getting back from Baba, and insights that they hadn't had before. It really is a very powerful way of building the relationship, I find. So, and just before we go into questions, when I say about talking to Baba in meditation, Genti Ben often says her meditation method is she goes to the soul world first to connect with Shiv Baba, but then actually spends quite a lot of time in a subtle region. And one of the methods I have found very useful is seeing myself as an angel in the subtle region, and actually seeing Bap Dada in the angelic form, and then having a conversation it might sound strange. Some of you probably tried this anyway, but a combination of taking power from Baba in the soul world, but also spending some time talking with Baba and seeing what connections come back. And then again, if I'm journaling as well, it helps to crystallize and clarify the communication that's happening. And I'll get touchings about how I can move forward. And of course, if I'm ever concerned about the accuracy of those touchings, I can always check in with Srimat, make sure it's not contradicting that. I can check in with a senior. But I think if I'm being very honest in my efforts and intentions, then I'll find that it's very accurate and helpful communication that I'll have with Baba. So I could go on. It's a fascinating journey. I hope it's been interesting for you, and I would obviously want to leave some time for questions. So thank you for your kind attention. I'll hand back to Maria.
Thank you very much for your honest and sweet sharing from the heart. It was really very helpful, I think, for everyone. Yes, you are from UK, and the souls from other countries, Mediterranean countries or other countries, are a little more careless about checking the self, but you check yourself very well. Yes, it was very interesting. There is one question here that I don't know if you. It says that when Baba says that drama moves like a louse, what can you share with us about it? Actually, a few days ago, we had Brother Geges in Greece, and we had this topic, and he was saying that actually it's the Hindi word louse. It's not like the Sindhi, because in Sindhi the louse is like the water wheel that gets the water with the buckets and slowly and systematically brings the water from the well. So they took it louse, like going slowly and systematically. But what can you share about that?
Good question. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we're that the thing that's coming most about that, it's not something I've churned a huge amount about in terms of that particular phrase in the middle. It just makes me smile when I hear it. But the thing that it has come to my mind a few times, and I think we're entering a new era where things are going to start to move very, very quickly. And maybe one of the things is Baba was trying to foster a sense of patience in souls. You know, on one hand, he's saying that you don't know when your body is going to fail you, and you can go at any time, and you need to be ever ready. But in reality, then also there can be a lot of frustration about how slowly things seem to move, you know, and how long service projects take, or you know, I seem to be doing the same thing for a long time. So I think Baba plays with us in terms of building different powers, and you know, the quality of paying attention, but also being patient at the same time. But I do think when I hear Laos now that we're more in the time of suddenly, you know, on every level. So I'm not sure whether the Laos has maybe transformed. It's about to transform into something more rapid.
Yeah. So there is a question here, very important and interesting to write, to journal. Can you give me other tips about this? And somebody else says, very interesting. I have been using that journal method ever since, and it has really brought about lots of answers and growth in my spiritual life. So can you give some other tips about this? I think you explained a lot, but if you have something else.
There's a lot being written in the Logic world about journaling, and I think one of the things that I think BKs are slightly different. I think one of the things that can happen just with normal journaling is that you can end up going around in circles, the same stuff coming up again and again, because if I'm just tapping into my mind, then I can get locked into, some scars of complaints and blah, 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 and just not making progress. So I think, yeah, I did cover it. One of the things is reflecting on points from the Merli within my own journaling, so that I'm bringing Baba's energy into that which is transformational, just as I would in meditation. Really, actually, it's a form of connection, yoga connection, relationship with myself and Baba, in that just as in meditation I've got stuck in, Maya's claws, and also stuck in my old sanskaras and habits from half a cycle. So when I remember Baba in yoga, I'm breaking that connection with the old mind and reconnecting to the essence of the soul, the original qualities of the soul, and to Baba as we know. So it's really, how do I do that in journaling? So making sure that definitely express how I feel, but also say, okay, I've been reflecting on what you said in the Merli. I'm still struggling with this, but I know you said this point, and that's interesting, and I'd like to, could you share some more insights with me on that? And so then the real key is writing back from Baba. Now, obviously, nobody in the Logic world has this aspect. I've not heard of it before, but so it's this two-way conversation, I think. The only other tip I can use, which I didn't cover because of time, was spiral writing. Some people use that. Again, that can help break the old patterns of the intellect, and that is when I don't use spiral writing much, but I know some people find it very useful. So it's when you write in a circle, so you turn the paper around as you're writing, and when you're writing to Baba, expressing something you want to let go of, you start in the middle and you write outwards until you get to the edge of the paper. And if that's not enough, then you can always start another spiral, but it tends to work out pretty well, especially on A4. And then when I'm writing from Baba to myself, which is getting to the essence, then I start on the outside of the paper and I spiral inwards gradually. So you're writing in circles, and you have to turn the paper around as you're doing it. But I still use my non-writing hand when writing back from Baba. So again, the idea is that it really takes so much concentration to do that, that you're sort of breaking the distractions and normal patterns of the intellect, and it's just a way of helping to focus and create a clear channel between you and Baba. Maybe a bit too much information there, but if somebody asked for an extra tip, that would be one.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But somebody says, can you share Baba's response to your journal to Baba? What Baba
Baba's
says?
response to me?
Yes.
No. That's between me and Baba.
Yes. It's great.
But in terms of the type of things, it can really vary widely. I think I often ask for specific things that are going on for me, and what I've experienced for myself, and what I think other people experience, is that you just know when it feels different from your normal expression. It has a different quality to it. It can often be very surprising what comes back. And I suppose one tip is not to overthink it. When you're writing, don't think about what you're writing. Just let it come. You know, you don't think about it at all. Just write whatever comes out. And then when you read it afterwards, the letter back from Baba, it can actually be quite profound. Now, some people aren't comfortable. Some people say, "Oh, it's not Baba, it's your higher self." And actually, that's okay, because if you're getting a response from your angelic form, that's still Sato Pratan, it's still Karmatit, so it's still going to be good stuff. So, but qualitatively, with practice, you'll start to notice a difference between the two. But my experience, as on this silent retreat, is that even the first time people do it, they get a very profound experience with it.
Thank you. I have done that also in GRC some years back. It was really very powerful. It was very touching, especially when Baba replied, and I was crying at the time. Yeah, it was really very powerful.
Yeah.
Let's see if there is another question. No, just thank you. I think that the time passed very quickly. Thank you, brother, so much for your sharing. We only have 2 minutes, and in 2 minutes, can you lead us to some meditation?
Sure.
And then we can turn on the cameras and we have some drishti from you. So thank you from the heart.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so just taking a couple of minutes then to move into a space of silence, connecting with the beautiful star, the soul, in the center of the forehead, that divine energy, that beautiful connection with Baba, and a real appreciation for this month of January, such a powerful month where Baba has been guiding us into connection with our angelic form to move closer to our Karmatit stage, to go beyond all the influences of action, to move into that space of being able to let go of everything that's been accumulated over the half cycle, move back to a pure state of love and harmony, and a real appreciation for this beautiful Brahmin family. For the self, for Baba, for the family, and to also trust Baba's daughter, Drama, that we're moving into a time now where our creation, Baba's creation of purity, is going to end all the suffering for all the souls in the world, to put an end to all the sorrow, so that all souls can be free and we can go home with Baba. Om Shanti.